Hey, I was just at a leadership conversation webinar from a couple of business leaders at SATE, and the discussion this morning was around micromanagement. Excuse me. So we got a few key takeaways, and one of the first ones was a micromanager probably doesn't know they're a micromanager. 96% of what we all do is habitual. Subconsciously, we believe and think about different things and do different things that are habitual. And we don't even know. So we're not aware of that. And until we're aware, we can't change anything. So, how do you tell a micromanager he's a micromanager or she? So, a couple of things that we discussed was accountability. If you don't know what happens, if you don't do the things you've been assigned to do as an employee, then you're not really accountable because you don't understand the consequences. But if your micromanager was to let you know that, okay, this is what happens if we don't get this done. We don't get it done on budget. We don't get it done on time. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen to me. Here's what's going to happen to you. So your accountability will go way up if you know what's going to happen. So if you're being micromanaged, find out what happens if you don't get something done. And if your accountability goes up, the micromanagement should come down. And there's no easy way to tell a micromanager that he's micromanaging. So by your actions, by your awareness of how to approach it, could change things for you. Because if you're not happy with your job, maybe it's time for another job. But at the same time, if you enjoy the work, then here's a few ideas you can use to speak to or help your manager become aware that he's micromanaging. The second takeaway, expectations. Again, back to accountability. The expectation of what's to be done will help you get it done on time, which will help you reduce the amount of micromanagement, hopefully. That would be the idea. But if you're a micromanager and you're assigning a task to someone, um, give the expectation. Here's what we expect you to do. And if you're the employee, find out what the expectation is so that you can deliver on time or deliver whatever needs to be done with that task to make everyone successful. So they're kind of intertwined, accountability and expectations. But if both those factors are explored, discussed, then there's an opportunity for micromanagement to be reduced and employee satisfaction to be increased, right? Which is what you want. Assumptions. Of course, we all make assumptions all the time. And if you just accept the task and assume things, then you won't know what the expectation is and you won't be that accountable. So be careful when you're making assumptions. If you don't know what your employee is thinking, then you're going to assume they know what they're doing. You're going to assume it's all going to come in on time and everything's going to be great. But as a micromanager, you're going to assume they're probably not going to get it all done on time or not come in under budget. So you're going to have to micromanage it. So there's something else to think about, assumptions. And the biggest one was context. And most of the time now we're communicating through text or email. Thank goodness there's Zoom. We've got, you can certainly transfer a lot more information in a conversation face to face or over Zoom. Face to face, of course, is always better. Zoom is almost as good. And a phone call then would be next. But email and text can lose context of what you're trying to say. And I'm reminded of an event that we were at this summer where a gentleman had 8 people come up on stage and he gave us a sentence. And each person was to emphasize a different word in the sentence as we went along, as we all repeated the sentence. So the sentence was, I didn't tell her to spend all the money. So the first person would say, well, I didn't tell her to spend all the money. And the second person would say, I didn't tell her to spend all the money. Third, I didn't tell her to spend all the money. Fourth, I didn't tell her to spend all the money. I didn't tell her to spend all the money. I didn't tell her to spend all the money. I didn't tell her to spend all the money. So you can see how the context of each time it's said is changed. So texting and email loses context. So be careful how you're communicating with your employees. Be careful how you're communicating with your micromanager boss, because maybe you're the cause of his micromanagement, right? And the last thing was responsibility. It's a two-way street, really. If communication is all one-sided and you're just getting told what to do and you're checked on constantly, then you have a responsibility to stand up and say, okay, wait a minute, what happens if I don't get this done? So now you can become a little more accountable. What's the expectation of me in this particular project? Okay, now you're more accountable, you're being responsible, and you know what the expectation is. You can probably deliver easier. And then, of course, assuming things. Be careful what you assume. And then, of course, context. Let's make it as clear as possible and communicate face to face when we can. And then we can reduce the micromanagement, become a better employee, become a happier employee. And of course, everything relates back to your attitude. Do you have a good attitude or a bad attitude? My name is Steve O'Reilly. I'm a Dynamite delegate. And if you have a bad attitude or need to change any of those factors, give me a call. We can help. Look forward to speaking to you soon. Take care.